Hi everybody, welcome back to another installment of the Hobbit book club with the Hearthguard. We are actually wrapping up the book this week, which is crazy, especially for me, especially for somebody like me who, prior to this book club, never read this. So it is crazy to me that we are in the final 3 chapters. As you can see right here, chapter 17 through 19 is what we read this week. So we will be discussing that. Let me get into the voice chat, and I hope you guys enjoy this video. Thank you for being here. If you are watching on YouTube, please drop an old subscribe button. I greatly appreciate it. We're chipping away at that. We're getting ever closer to 100, which is insane. And if you like this video, please like and comment and all that good jazz, and tell your friends about it. Woo! Okay, let's go. Hello.
Hello. Hey.
Okay, let me get in here. Had to switch scenes. I had to do the streamer things. Oh, hi, Danny. There's a doggo under my desk. Okay. Sometimes I'll be sitting cross-legged in my chair, and then I put my foot down, and I'm like, "There's a dog there." Let's see if I. No, that's 16 Roman numerals. Hold on. Okay. 10, 15, 16, 17. Yeah, we did 17 through 19. Okay, so as my stream title suggests and everything else, like, we did not need 3 movies for this book. Like, good golly. Ugh. Stretching. Because, like you guys said, the Battle of 5 Armies is like this teeny tiny little section of the book.
Mm-hmm.
Like, good golly.
Especially from Bilbo's perspective.
Also true. He does so. He's knocked out for a huge part of it. Anywho, so, let's see. Oh, where was it? Isn't it there? Wait, I gotta remember where the chapter 17 starts.
They come back to the men and elves come back to the mountain with the Arkenstone.
Oh, that's right, because right before Bilbo had brought them said Arkenstone, and was like making the whole deal of like, this is my 14th share. Ah! Raven, you haven't missed anything. We literally just started actually discussing.
All right, cool. I had a little adventure today. I accidentally left my keys at work, so I had to go all the way home to find this out, and then all the way back to work and all the way back home. So that was fun.
Oof.
But I got them. So security had them, and they had a little fun with me. They're like, "Well, we need you to describe your keys because I mess with them every day." So this was their moment, and they're like, "Is there anything mysterious about your keys?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I got a bottle opener on there." And they're like, "All right."
Nice.
Yeah.
All right.
So all is well now. So I had an adventure before this adventure.
Nice. All right. So, like you were saying, Calder, they have returned to the mountain. They have the Arkenstone, and let's see. And stop dying. Let's see. Yeah,
can't tell him to stop doing anything. He won't listen.
That's true. So then let's see. Yeah, because I liked this whole part too when, like, you know, he's like, oh, this, like, you know, Bard's almost like, oh, this Arkenstone, and then, you know, he's like, what? And then of course Bilbo comes in. He's just like, well, I gave it to them. It's like mass betrayal. And it was interesting, like, jumping way ahead to the very end when, spoiler alert, Thorin, you know, passes and talks to Bilbo, like, right before he passes and stuff, is like, you know, like, he forgives Bilbo and reconciles, and it's like, it's cool now looking back at this beginning chunk of the chapters that we read for this week in comparison to the end of the book, and being like, wow, like, this is awesome that, you know, they did get to reconcile, they did get to, you know, come to peace and come to terms and everything, because, like, over the course of these 260, 70 pages or whatever, like, they did go on a grand adventure together, and, like, they survived together, like, yeah. So because he's like so mad at, you know, this, where he's like saying, you know, curse Gandalf for bringing you on here, like into the group, you know, blah 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 and everything. And
It's also where we get one of the most famous Tolkien quotes ever of where what was it? If more people valued where is it? I just read it. You figure I'd have the quote to hand.
I don't know which quote you're referring to, so I can't help.
No, yeah, you're fine.
While you're looking for that, Tim, at least for me on page 247 at the very end of the page, I felt like Bilbo's attitude here, where he's kind of like, dear me, like, I am sure this is all very uncomfortable. You like, you know, and he almost I feel like he kind of says it in like a he's like, it's almost like he's like, perhaps I took this too literally. I have been told the dwarves are sometimes politer in word than deed. Like, I felt like there was, I felt at least like there was a bit of snarkiness in this paragraph, like a bit of like, not attitude, like he's, you know, like snapping his fingers at Thorin or anything, but kind of like, you know, I guess this would have been like his tookish side coming out a little bit. Like, I don't know, like, I just felt like there was a little bit more snark and like, confidence in this paragraph versus like timidness and, you know, like reluctance. And I don't know, that's I took it that way as well. English, I read another line and then words came out that combined things. That's how I took it. There we go. Sheesh Louise. Yeah, but it's like, it was almost disheartening to hear Thorin speak to Bilbo this way, because even though they go into it way more in the movie, I feel like the whole like the dragon sickness, you know, and stuff like that, like it kind of feels like it's come out here more, considering we compare what Thorin is acting like now versus how he acted in the beginning of the book, where, you know, he's pretty lively, he's pretty, you know, like, I don't know, like, you want to be his friend, whereas right now you're like, you're kind of a jerk, how dare you. Let's see. And the whole like, be off, called Thorin, you have mail upon you which was made by my folk and is too good for you. It cannot be pierced by arrows, but if you do not hasten, I will sting your miserable feet, so be swift. And I was like, wow. Like, I mean, but is that not accurate almost for Weekend Warrior too, where it's like, oh, you're this like super heavily armored Kingsman, but you didn't protect your shins. Like, let's see.
Yeah, I got one Kingsman because he was pretty heavily armored, even down to the covering his shins and everything and kneecaps. So I got him in the back of the leg, nearly dead legging him, and I got him on his legs that way.
Nice.
That was not easy.
I also felt like Dane's approach, like upon the battlefield, was kind of very like, not lackluster, but just kind of like, like,
It it is more showy, definitely in the movie. I kind of enjoyed Dane more in the movie than I do in the book.
Well, he's got so much attitude in the movie because he comes in on his pig, you know, and he's played by. Go ahead.
They made him all Scottish.
Yeah.
Probably not.
Yeah. I can place I can picture the actor that plays his voice, but I'm like drawing on who it is, but I can totally picture him.
Connolly.
Yeah, I can see him, but I'm terrible with names. So, oh my gosh, music. Yeah, but he had like such like, I don't know, he just had such attitude in the movie, which of course will just, I feel like I need a button at this point to just clip a recording of you know, the movie was made more showy, blah, you know, and everything. Because it was just like, I think it says in here something like, yeah, Bard refused to let the dwarves go straight onto the mountain and like everything, and yeah, it was, you know, and Bard seems to be almost like, no, we need to wait. We need to get our share of this deal, this agreement.
I do wonder, and I know at this point Thorin is technically king under the mountain, but I did always wonder if Dane would have talked some sense into Thorin about, you know, sharing a little bit with the townspeople, and because he does at the end after the battle. So I always wondered if maybe there was a little bit more fair play since he wouldn't have been affected by the dragon sickness yet.
Yeah, and I also wonder as well, like, how much of Thorin's attitude was actually, you know, the dragon sickness versus necessarily what he actually felt. Because, like, I feel like a lot of this could have been avoided, resolved, whatever word you want to use, you know, had Thorin been in his air quote right mind. Because go ahead.
Sorry, I found the quote, and it's one of the most famous Tolkien quotes. There is no more in you of good than you know, child of the kindly West, some courage and some wisdom blended in measure. If more of us valued food and cheer and song above hoarded gold, it would be a merrier world. And that's some of Thorin's final words to Bilbo. And those are, it's one of the most famous Tolkien quotes because of just the message in it.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, Ellen Fair uses it all the time, and for good reason. It's a very important message to give to people.
Oh, absolutely.
I think that's where Thorin is basically saying at the end of his life, he's like, no, look, I was wrong, and I think he was blinded not so much by like in the film it was the dragon sickness, but I think it was more the greed of a man who's been denied like wealth for so long that when he finally had it again, he was like, oh, like I don't want to share this with anybody.
Oh, that's an interesting way to think about it. That's very interesting.
But yeah, so
because that is a good point. I feel like a lot of us can relate to that from the standpoint of like, if growing up we weren't allowed to have X thing, and then it's like, you know, I don't know, name anything really, and then you get to be an adult where it's like, oh, I get to make my own decisions for my own house or my own pantry or my own whatever, and it's like, no, I'm gonna go buy this thing. Nobody can share it with me because I must have this thing.
No, exactly.
Yeah, that's, yeah. I hadn't thought of it that way. Yeah, and I felt like the oh, so I did like how like Bolg or Bolg, however you pronounce his name, like makes his like appearance, you know, in this fight, when obviously in the movie it's the white orc goblin dude and Bolg, right? Isn't it both?
Yeah, it's Azog and Bolg.
Yeah.
which are actually related.
Well, yeah, because this whole thing of like, Bolg of the North is coming, Odane, whose father you slew in Moria.
Yeah. So yeah, well, I thought it was Thorin that killed Azog in the books as well.
That's a Tim question.
Yeah.
I do believe it was. Yeah, he killed Azog at Moria. I think that's where he gets the title of Oaken Shield.
Okay, so they completely did that differently in the movie then.
Yeah, they did that more to have a more cinematic antagonist.
Makes sense.
Because Bolg is barely in the book, so
That's fair. Are they both mentioned
makes
more in
more
the
sense.
Silmarillion and like the Lost Tales and stuff like that, or?
Not really.
Oh,
Yeah, I think
Kind
they're
of
more these characters.
Yeah, they're just for this book, really.
oh, okay.
Yeah, because originally this was like a standalone adventure. It's kind of
Right.
like when you have a one-off in a D&D campaign.
Right. No, I'm with
Because
you.
it wasn't supposed to be anything like particularly fancy to start. It was just a children's story, and then it blossomed into something more.
I wonder if like Tolkien's looking down on us, like, you know, and just being like, wow, I never thought that, you know, my 4 books, well, other books too, but like the 4 main books, you know, would turn into what they have. Whether it be, you know, the movies, whether it be things like Felon Fair, you know, and other LARPs and cosplays and, you know, inspired by, and people learning Elvish and like learning how to read and write, you know, it's just like, can you imagine like that you're like, or I probably, C.S. Lewis probably feels the same way about like Chronicles of Narnia, where it's like, did you think that these little books, you know, would have such an impact on literature of the modern age?
Well, I think Tolkien had an understanding of that just due to the fact that during his lifetime it had become huge.
Mm.
And as an avid scholar of like language and myth, he probably kind of expected it to be, being as he himself was writing it kind of after the fact as a mythology for England, which he felt had lost its myth during the subsequent conquests, like during the Saxon invasion, during the Norman invasion, during the invasions of the Vikings. In between those two,
Right.
Britons kind of just disappeared. Like,
yeah. Yeah, I also felt like this, I don't know, maybe this was just this is my like reading of the battle, especially in comparison to the movies, but I felt like the whole battle sequence was kind of bleh. Like, I don't know, maybe that's just me, but it kind of just was like, okay, we're doing the things, like, cool, like, you know, we had a few like stands here and there, and stuff, but like, I don't know, like,
well, in another way, it's kind of like remember how we talked about how quick it was that Bard slew the dragon? It was more of just okay, we got to get this through to tell the story,
okay,
because it's just how it goes. Like, it's
sure,
an important part of the story. I feel like it's very much in that same vein.
Yeah,
Where Tolkien knew he needed to wrap it up, but he didn't really want to make it into a big deal. Because
sure,
Bilbo's not a warrior. He just isn't. But Bilbo could still experience the aftermath of the battle.
true. And to your point as well about the whole like you know, like the smog stuff and whatnot, like the let's see, where was it, like no, maybe never mind, maybe I'm thinking of something different. Is it the end of, hold on. Hi Civ.
Hey, sorry. I tried to hop on at 8:30 and then like stuff happened, so
All good.
yeah. But I always attributed to like the fact that the battle's like 3 pages is like it's a kid's book.
Yeah.
Like it has a lot of like these big entrances and these big movements, but it's not going to dive into the intricacy. Also, probably, you know, having that battle that, you know, Thorin gets stabbed and, you know, like have, you know, reading that in real time instead of in a flashback may have been like, I don't know. I could see it being a lesser blow to do it the way that he wrote it, especially if you're like, you know, 12 years old reading it.
Yep. I mean, that's a very good point. I definitely keep forgetting that this is a children's book. I've told several people like during these weeks of reading this that I'm like, yeah, I think any future kids that I have are going to be required to read the books before they watch the movies, only because like I'm obviously going from movies to books, and like I'm actually a little nervous about reading like the trilogy because I have like so religiously watched the movies that, you know, it's like I won't be able to form my own images of the scenes and the scapes and stuff just because I will have the movies so ingrained in my mind.
One thing you don't have to worry about too much with that, realistically, is that so much of those movies was done in not a perfect homage, but in such a good homage to Tolkien, and many of the visuals were taken directly from his work. Like, you had some of the set designers and stuff actually people who had worked on images from the books with Tolkien at some point.
Fair point.
Yeah, like these are renowned artists who had talked to the man beforehand.
Yeah.
Like, decades ago now, but you know.
Yeah.
Well, decades ago then, because
yeah,
that was 20 years ago.
Ooh, I know. I did find what I meant by the bard and the dragon stuff is that it's on 259 for me, but after Thorin passes is like they go back and talk about like when Beorn showed up and like, you know, kind of that like recap like we do with the whole like Smaug leaving the mountain and then going to Lake Town and stuff like that, is the whole like, okay, we're gonna switch perspectives here for a second. It's like, well, what we know of here is that like Bilbo was unconscious during this end part of the battle. He was being super useful. And so it's like similar to that too, of just like here's the recap of you know, everything up until when Gandalf was like, yeah, they're like these are where the eagles are, like, you know. Yeah. And it was sweet how like, oh, go ahead, Sid, go ahead.
I just kind of wanted to say something kind of paired with like with Tim's comment about books to movies, is like I wouldn't worry too much. I've only read some of the Fellowship, but like it's good to remember, like when I was reading the Fellowship, like I'd seen the movie first, but there's a lot more in the book than there is in the movie. And so like I would be like, oh yeah, this is this part, but then like my mind would fill in with visuals like in between. While with this book and The Hobbit, I mean, I could probably read this book in, you know, 6 hours, and that doesn't even cover like all of the movie time. So
True.
like it's like, you know, there's so much more movie than there's book for The Hobbit.
That's
where,
a fair
like,
point.
It's not that way with the Lord of the Rings kind of going forward.
Fair point. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
It would take me a lot longer than 12 hours to read all 3 of the Lord of the Rings. Let's see. Yeah, and the whole, like, I loved the whole at the end when Bilbo like says goodbye, you know, he's like, tease at 4, but any of you are welcome at any time. And it was just like, oh, like, it's just so sweet.
That part does always tug on the heartstrings. Even in the movie, they'd always.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Especially, I feel like because in the movie we see the death scenes of like Killy and Philly and Thorin and stuff, it's like, you know, you're even more emotional about it because you like actually saw the, you know, their demise. And then it's, you know, Balin's there at the door and you know, and everything, and it's just like, yeah, guys, like, whenever, if you guys are ever in my neck of the woods, you know, you're more than welcome. It's just like, oh, yeah, and I, you know, it's, and it's like then they go back to, excuse me, they go back through Mirkwood and drop off the Elf King. And it was nice to see their dynamic shift as well, a little bit of like him being like, you know, you're a friend of elves or an elf friend or whatever he said, elf friend. And that was like really cool. And it was nice seeing like Beorn's story as well kind of get wrapped up of like, you know, his descendants could still turn into bears, and, you know, he became, I think it says, yeah, here it is, became a great chief afterwards in those regions and ruled a wide land between the mountains and the wood. Yeah, it was just cool. And
he has Christmas there, doesn't he? At Beorn's? See if I can find it. Wow.
Yeah, they do. They stay there till like it's spring almost. I feel like they're there for like a couple months.
With Beorn or in Mirkwood?
And Beorn. Because they go around the forest.
Oh yeah, because they said, and there for a while they both stayed. Yuletide was warm and merry there, and men came from far and wide to feast at Beorn's bidding.
That'd be so cool to spend Yule at Beorn.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Oh, now I know where we're at. We're back to the shapeshifter guy, right?
Yeah. We're returning home. We're at the end of chapter 17. Or at the end of 18, rather. Yeah, the end of 18.
Didn't Bilbo give, sorry to backtrack a little bit, but didn't Bilbo give the Wood Elf King the jewels or whatever he was looking for?
Yeah, it was the, where was it? Oh, here
the emerald.
Yeah, he brought a necklace of silver and pearls that Dane had given him at their parting. In what way have I earned such a gift, O Hobbit? Well, I thought, don't you know, that some little return should be made for your hospitality. I liked that because he's like, yeah, I drank a lot of your wine and ate a lot of your bread. Sorry.
I think it's Dane, Raven, what you're thinking of is Dane gives the Elf King back, like, the emeralds of Girion, I think is what they're called.
Yes, the ones that are like the stars in the sky. Yeah. That's what I was thinking of.
Yeah, and that's why I go back to. I really do think that Dane might have set everything straight if he would have gotten to the mountain.
Because in the movie, it's like they look like they're diamonds, but they're actually emeralds.
Yeah, I think Tim, you touched on this last week.
The Silmarils or something.
Yeah, the movie tries to hint more at the Silmarils, but in the book they're something more mundane. still important, but more mundane than what's ostensibly like the holy grail for elves.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Okay. Yeah. And then I do like that the end of this chapter, end of 18, is of course another nod to Bilbo wanting to be back home. You know, so comes snow after fire, and even dragons have their ending. And then it's, I wish now only to be in my own armchair. And then to your point, Civ, it's the start of chapter 19. It was on May the 1st. It's like, wow, you guys have been there for like probably 6 months. Well, actually, well, they 1st of May they get to Rivendell.
Yeah, it's back in like a page prior where they're like, it was spring and a
that's
fair
right.
one before Bilbo and Gandalf took their leave of Beorn. So they get there like probably before Christmas and then stay until like March,
Late.
April.
Yeah, several months. And then, and I did like that he noted the passage of time, because obviously, like, they're traveling by horse/ponyback laden with gold and silver. So, like, I don't know, like, they're traveling many a days, many a months to get from way where they were back to, whatchamacallit, back to Hobbiton. So it's like, it's gonna take them a minute to get there.
Are you sure they traveled by ponyback? I mean, the pony didn't die.
Well, I think there were several times in these 3 chapters, though, the ponies were like doing things begrudgingly, because when they leave, isn't it when they leave Rivendell, no, they find the troll horde on the way back or whatever, right? That they had buried or something. And so
Yeah.
they picked up more things, and I think he makes a note of like the ponies were less than enthused about it or whatever.
Yeah, the ponies are sick of it at this point.
They're like, can we just be
They
home?
know what's happened to the previous ones.
Exactly. They're like, word gets around. Yeah. And then these, because like we come back to the whole point of like, the elves of Rivendell like sing, right? So we've got lots of songs in this chapter, which were really pretty and poetic.
There was a lot more poems and songs in this book than I remember.
That's because your memory is bad.
Yikes.
I mean, he's not wrong. Reasons.
See. I'm just like skimming over these to see if there was anything I remember like really taking of note.
He kind of wraps this one up. I mean, comparatively to Lord of the Rings, he kind of wraps The Hobbit up again because it's a child story.
Yeah.
Pretty quickly.
This I did have a question about, Tim. Between the 2 like songs and like right after the second song, the one that's like the sing all ye joyful, now sing all together, like right after that one, like when Bilbo's saying like, well, merry people, said Bilbo looking out, what time by the moon is this, you're really, is he just talking to like random elves? Like,
I do believe so. I honestly couldn't give you a direct answer on that one.
that's
I
fair.
always wondered that too. 'Cause it happens in Lord of the Rings too, I think. And I always imagine just like elves in the trees kind of singing randomly throughout the night.
Yeah. And it was, I don't know, like, I don't know what, when I was reading. Oh, go ahead.
No, sorry. My tiny dog is screaming.
Oh, lovely. Excellent. My dog is passed out next to me. I don't know why, but part of me almost pictured this like when Frodo is back in Rivendell and like everybody comes into his room in the movie. Like when he was like, well, merry people. Like, I don't know why that's what came to my mind versus like, the elves that are singing. But I was just thinking he was like talking to the group, and I'm like, wait, the group's not with him. Only Gandalf's with him. He's talking to the ponies. But yeah, it was just like, when I kept seeing it, just like he's talking to this group, and I was like, what group? What group? He's not with a group. Who's he talking to? And I did like the like the whole point here in that where Gandalf said there is a long road yet, said Gandalf, but it is the last road, said Bilbo. It's like it's kind of like a little bit of a homage to, like, you know, the home stretch. We're in the final leg of this journey. We're wrapping it up and stuff like that. It's like, well, yeah, like Rivendell was one of their main first stops on the way on their journey. So, you know, here we are going back.
He stayed there for a hot minute too, didn't he?
I think so. Yeah, they're in May. It's May. Actually, I don't know. He does make a reference that obviously, like, when they first came across the trolls were about a year ago. And for their nasty adventure with Tom and Bert and Bill.
They only go there. They only stay there a week. Just after a week, he said farewell to Elrond.
Oh, you're right.
It's like buried in a paragraph beneath one of the songs. Like 4 paragraphs down. I remember then, like, he feels like he's close and he kind of like wants to get home. Plus, they're on like they're not in the wild anymore, so
Yeah.
going will be easier.
True. Let's see. Yeah, this part. So they put the gold in bags and slung them on the ponies, who were not at all pleased about it. Oh man.
Ponies are never pleased about anything, though.
Yeah, they are little grumpy little things.
Always.
Oh, yeah.
That's why Tolkien has beef with them.
Maybe.
Oh my gosh.
I've been bit by more ponies than full-size horses.
This whole chunk when he arrives back to Bag End, where his stuff's being auctioned off because they presume him to be dead, is hysterical. Like, can you imagine, like, you know, you go on some long trip, you didn't tell anybody you were going, and, you know, people were like, well, I guess we could just start selling his stuff. I guess he's dead, you know, and then...
Well, it's not just anybody who's selling it, it's his cousin.
Yeah.
His mortal enemies.
Yep. Because they were...
Didn't he end up having to buy back a lot of his stuff?
Yeah.
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 I will say that.
A year to get back.
A hoard of troll gold will help you with that, though.
True.
Yeah.
And gold from under the mountain. And
I do find it funny that, like, when he leaves, though, like, remember he in the beginning, like, he leaves, like, he wasn't going to go, and then Gandalf kind of makes him go, so he doesn't actually tell anyone that he's leaving.
Yeah.
Like, or how long he's going to be gone. Like, nothing.
They just see him.
Yeah, and he left his breakfast, like, it's just half eaten, and he's just gone. He's just like,
moldy.
I have to leave now.
Yep.
He just pulls a poochie, and it's like, I have to go now. My home planet needs me.
Yeah, and I did love that, like, like, you know, they're saying here where they're like, it was quite a long time before Mr. Baggins was in fact admitted to be alive again. The people who had got specifically good bargains at the sale took a deal of convincing, and in the end, to save time, Bilbo had to buy back quite a lot of his own furniture. Many of his silver spoons mysteriously disappeared and were never accounted for. Yeah.
We all know who has them.
Well, of course. Yeah.
I'm surprised he didn't just use the ring to go get them. Seriously, he was always upset about it.
He holds that grudge for like 50 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I really liked how Tolkien wrapped up the book in the chapter that, you know, Balin comes to visit him. And like, there was something about these there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 technically paragraphs, but they're all, you know, only a handful of lines each. And I don't know, it was like perfectly descriptive enough where you're like, okay, you can see that Bilbo, you know, has obviously like not lived the high life, but like, you know, he's gone a little bit more extravagant, you know, kind of thing. And then Balin, he says, you know, Balin's beard was several inches longer, and you know, he had this like jeweled belt of great magnificence. You know, it's just like, okay, so Balin's, you know, been living the good life, Bilbo's been living the good life, and it was just like really, you know, sweet, because Balin kind of gave him the rundown of like what had gone on, what had happened, you know, et cetera, et cetera. And then I don't know, it was just like, I don't know, there was something just like so like tearjerkery about the last like technically 2 paragraphs. You know, and like, you know, about the like Gandalf questioning his luck, and then, you know, about the prophecy and stuff like that. And like, you know, he's like, you're a very fine person, Mr. Baggins, and I'm very fond of you, but you are only quite a little fellow in a wide world after all. Thank goodness, said Bilbo, laughing, and handed him the tobacco jar. And I just picture these 3, relatively speaking, old dudes, some of them old, just sitting by the fire with their pipes and like a cup of tea, you know, and just leaning back with their feet propped up on a little stool or what we would call an ottoman, you know, and just like reminiscing about old times together, like old friends. Like, that's just what I picture in that end. And it's like, man, after everything they've been through, and especially what everything Balin's been through to get to where he is, it's like, what an awesome like end and full circle.
Oh no, definitely, and I think that's part of the message Tolkien tries to convey. Just the ultimate comfort is just the comfort of home.
Yep.
It's like everything that makes the adventure worthwhile is being able to come back home and just enjoy the fruits of your labor. Like,
oh yeah,
like the things you've worked hard for and fought for are the things that are the most worthy possessions. Like,
and the friends you've made, and you know, who you want to spend time with, and stuff like that.
Exactly, and in a sense, like that, your most treasured possession might not be a physical thing, but rather the relationships you've developed.
That's a very good point. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean that's a bit of a meme, but it's not untrue, particularly with somebody like Tolkien, who had seen the horrors of war and freaking had lost people because of it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Well, does anybody have any final thoughts on either this last chapter or the book as a whole?
I got in a little late, so I don't know what you guys went over at the beginning, but I remember the last battle itself being very short in the book. I didn't remember it being that short. Like, Bilbo puts on the ring, he goes invisible, and then I guess he's knocked out, and I almost didn't find him because he had the ring on, but he came to.
That scene was funny.
Last check. Yeah.
That scene was funny because it was like, I hear this voice, and then it's like, poof, here I am. You know.
I bet you Sauron was really pissed off about that.
He's like, he's right there. He's not even moving.
He's probably so mad.
He's like, he's not even moving. He's right there. Somebody go get him. Like, he's unconscious. You can just take it right off his finger.
Somebody, please take the ring.
Yeah.
Anybody but a Hobbit.
So close.
Yep.
Yeah, I enjoyed reading the book again. It's been, gosh, at least 10 years since I last read it, which is longer than I like to go. And first time I read it, I was 9. I got it for Christmas, all of them, but they were individual books, not one giant book. And it made it a lot easier for me to read at that age.
Oh, for sure.
But yeah, I've always enjoyed it, and there's so much that I'd forgotten because I just watched the movie so many times that a lot of it just left. I've forgotten so much because you don't see it in the movie, even the extended. You don't see a lot of it, so it was good to read the books again.
Oh yeah, 10 of 10 would recommend.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, what I'm thinking for the Fellowship is that we'll take next week off. The Furies are gathering to meet about things next Monday, so this is slightly a selfish reason to take next week off. But I'm thinking that next month, like we'll discuss in the chat about what we want to start, like how much we want to read per whatever for the Fellowship. But I'm thinking like next Monday is when we like start reading, and then 2 Mondays from now will be our first group club meeting. Or we can pick a new day. If Mondays don't always work for people, we can always pick a new day. But that's what I'm kind of thinking right now is we'll take 1 week off of no reading, and then we will start reading again technically next Monday will be like the start of new reading, but we won't have our first book club meeting for 2 weeks.
So the day after Patty's?
Yeah, we'll all be inebriated and hungover. Yeah. No. So
I got work. I can't be hungover.
I won't be either. Yeah, so we will start reading again on the 11th, but we will have our first group meeting on the 18th.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, we will discuss in the chat as to how much we're reading per week and stuff like that. But this has been really fun, guys. Like I've had a lot of fun, and
I enjoyed it.
I'm very much looking forward to doing the Fellowship, because I think Civ's in this same boat too. But I've never read the trilogy, so I've never read the Hobbit either. But I am very excited to get to read through the trilogy. And we can see too, I'll probably put out another message in the overarching book club, like book talk book chat and whatever, and just see if anybody wants to join us for the trilogy and stuff. See if we can get our ranks a little bit larger.
You might be able to, just because there's so much more to talk about. I feel
sure.
like in Lord of the Rings.
Sure. Well, and now we have our established like schedule too. That helps. Like we've now been doing this for, I think this is week 8. So it's like, we've been doing this for a little bit now, so we've got our rhythm.
Right.
But anywho, all right. Well, I'm gonna go. Go ahead.
I was actually gonna try to jump in onto the Sword Chronicles on March 8th, but I don't know. There's a beard competition, and the group that I'm part of, there's a charity we're helping out, so I am not sure if I can jump in on that day. I was gonna surprise you all and do it, but I don't think I can make it, because the charity that we're raising money for, they help make sure that foster kids actually have fun birthdays and a nice Christmas, so I can't say no to that.
Yeah.
But
For sure. Well, hey, the internet now knows you were gonna surprise Sword Chronicles, so it's not much of a surprise anymore.
yeah.
Yep. Congrats, bud. You've spoiled it.
Yeah, gosh, wow, way to ruin the surprise.
I mean, I'm pretty good at that.
All right, well, I'm
He's
gonna.
not lying.
All right, well, I'm gonna go wrap this up. This was fun as always, and we will discuss in the chat about how much we're reading, and then we'll get back to the group meetings in 2 weeks.
Cool.
Good night, everybody.
Good night. Later.
Bye.
Okay, guys, so that was freaking awesome. I can't believe that we have officially, wrapped up a Hobbit. That's absolutely nuts. I can now officially say that I've read it all, which is crazy. it's definitely very interesting reading these as adults versus, or reading this as an adult versus reading this as a kid, which is what this was, you know, designed for. So thank you guys for hanging out during this and sticking around and whatnot. But yeah, if you've been with us on YouTube this whole time, I hope you guys drop that subscribe. I really, really appreciate it. And like I said there at the end of the video, we will be having our next group meeting in 2 weeks. And so we won't have anyone next week for a group meeting. And then, yeah, 2 weeks from now will be our next group meeting. So thanks for tagging along. Our next book will be The Fellowship of the Ring. So I hope to see you guys there. And I'll try and be better about posting on my socials about what chapters we're reading per week so more people can get involved. So thanks again, guys, and you guys have been awesome. Good night, everybody.